Hello, good evening to you all. Happy Saturday. Welcome to Carrow Road. There it is, sunny, lovely stadium. The mood is a bit brighter now because it's empty. This might be one of those occasions where I keep laughing nervously and I get accused of being too happy on such a horrible day. Horrible day. I mean, I am reticent to say that this is a real low point, because if I'm being honest, this is what we've seen all season. I'd like to know the bits today that were particularly worse, as in really stand out worse than a lot of what we've seen this season. Let's go back to October. Let's go back to the first few games. Maybe there was a bit more energy obviously in the first few games, and Norwich are missing experienced players, but they have been weak defensively for most of the season. They have struggled to score goals for most of the season. They've looked lacking in fight in midfield for most of the season. The squad was unbalanced at the start of the season. There wasn't enough decent recruitment done at the start of the season. And even in a championship where it is average at best, it remains one of the poorest championships that I've seen operate. Norwich have just been well short of their previous standards in this division, and well short of where they were supposed to be, where the remit of the club had put them, where all that good work and the building and the recruiting and using the parachute payments and constant improvement from a top 26 team was supposed to lead. Only it's not that straightforward, and it's very easy to want credit when it's going all well and how clever your recruitment is and how smart you're being and all the great decisions and how the club continues to grow. But you then also have to be mature and strong enough to deal with it when it unravels, and take responsibility for that as well. Anyway, Norwich lost 3-0 here to Swansea. Norwich weren't very good while it was 11v11, if I'm honest. I thought Swansea dominated the ball, which is kind of to be expected, but they also looked capable of scoring every time they got into the final third. That theme didn't really diminish. It was just a question of how bothered Swansea were, really. So they were doing well. They led 1-0. I need to get my order of things right, but I'm pretty sure they went 2-0 down. Both goals were poor defensively, but well worked. And, I was speaking to some people who maybe said that, you could put a significant fault for each goal down to Sam McCallum, who's inflict. But I mean, that even if you're looking at the final point of the goals being quite close to Sam in some regard, there are issues all over the team in terms of Swansea getting to where they were, no pressure on the ball, absolute spaces for them to play through. And then Sam McCallum gets sent off just before half time. He was the last player. Angus Gunn was coming out, but and so may have made the goal scoring chance difficult for whoever it was who went through on goal. I can't really remember. But the reality is Sam McCallum cannot go into the back of the striker when he's clean through with no other defender around. And had he not done that, he may well have been able to go around the goalkeeper. So it is definitely a red card for me. The one in the second half where Josh Sargent was brought down was incredibly cynical, but that wasn't a red card because there were two other defenders quite close by. Certainly looked like from my angle. Norwich 2-0 down at half time. And then, against a team like Russell Mutton and Swansea, who are going to pass the ball for fun, with a man down. And as soon as Norwich went down to 10 men, David Wagner brought off Adam Eder, brought on Sam Byram. So by that sentiment, you are essentially saying, right, we're going to tighten, we're going to sit now, which is a kind of common convention as to what you would do if you go behind, if you go down to 10 men. And maybe when you're down to 10 men and losing 2-0, you do, but that was pretty much it's all yours now, guys. And so Swansea just passed the ball around, and when they decided to walk it in, they did, and they got their third goal. Which again, and I tweeted this, yes, it was 10v11, but that had nothing to do with Nick Chum getting between Max Aarons and Adam Amadelli and holding them both off and then slotting home. That's nothing to do with an extra man at that point. Maybe other than being slightly tired, but it was because they were running around a bit more. But really, that's a valid argument. So Swansea completely worthy of their victory. I think someone said they're on 62 points, so they're now level on points with Norwich, and they still hope to finish in the playoffs. It's literally like 2 games to go, 62 points. You should be nowhere near even dreaming about that. I saw someone message me. I think it might be Ben Manson message in the podcast group saying that Norwich. I haven't checked the table. Norwich are 3 points for the top 6. It's still on, as if. It's been fascinating. I mean, I have my little boy's birthday party on Friday, so I missed the press conference. I was obviously at QPR on Wednesday. Anel Hernandez's new contract was announced, I think, while I was at my boy's party, which is the second announcement that's come while I've been somewhere else. Really interesting tack, complete change in tack in those few days to all the changes that are suddenly going to come next season. And to me, that spoke much more about quick, let's rally and go for a playoff shot. Because that was a performance of, we're all going to be subjected to loads of changes, not a quick, let's get the wins we need to try and finish in the top 6. That was that performance today, even regardless of how it then unraveled. And again, it's hard. Like, you can obviously criticise the players, and it's not really, I mean, they deserve criticism. The thing about footballers is they will know that's horrible. They will be angry at themselves and each other after that, and after this season, after the whole season. I know Hernandez summed it up perfectly. Obviously, I'm delighted for him, by the way, that he's got his new contract, because I think on his part, that is thoroughly well deserved. I've wanted it to happen, and I think it's right with the situation at the club that he gets that new deal, because he can show others what the club means to them, and he's an important thing to build around. But you can't ignore that there's a part of that where, like 2 years ago, Onel was deemed not good enough where the club was going. So the fact that Onel is now such a key cog is brilliant for him, and I'm really chuffed that he's back around the club, because he's brilliant in terms of what he brings and his character. He really cares. But that does say a lot about what has happened around him and where the imbalance of this club is. And I mean, I hope people take responsibility for that and are realising that, because having spoken to Onel after the game today, he's sitting there saying it's our fault as players. We've got to do better. We're sent out there with instructions, and I think any player will take responsibility for that element of it. They are the end product. They are what gets sorted out. They are what decides things ultimately at the end. And some players will look at it and look around the dressing room and say, there's issues here. It's not down to me. It's not blah, blah, blah. And some of them will be like that. But generally, I think they really hurt when it's rubbish, especially if they're staying around. And they do want to take the responsibility for it. But it's not Jolt, but it's never just them. And I think the longer a group of players is together, and this group generally has been together quite a lot, the more it reflects the culture of the club, certainly the head coach, but we've had a change there. And so, I think a lot of what we see on the pitch, this sort of meandering of a team, this sort of lack of desperation to win a football match, and then composure and confidence to do it, that just screams everything that this club has been through in the last 18 months and a cultural failure to deal with that. And I know there's a cultural failure to deal with it because they don't do, as a football club, a lot of the things they used to do, because other football clubs don't do it, because they don't need the help of anyone. They don't, they just need to do what they do. And I think that seeps through into some of the things that the supporters see and feel. Some of it's quite subconscious, but that is why a lot of the supporters here aren't willing to give much leeway to anyone. There's no collective spirit. There's none of that, because there's been none fostered. The only effort they've made to foster it was appointing David Wagner and hoping, well, if he goes around and claps a bit and says nice things, and he is a great communicator, and I do really like a lot of what David Wagner does and is, but he's not going to solve all the problems. It was never just down to the head coach. Never in a million years was it just down to that. And that disconnect that some people felt was just being made up. Well, if anyone was sat in here in this stadium today will know there's no making it up. It is there. And you're going to need a pretty solid plaster to start picking it and sealing it, making things better. So anyway, yeah, that's a bit of a rant. There was an element then I was gonna take it, and I can't remember what it was. But there we go. So yes, all in all, and Nell did sit there talking to fans at the bottom at the end, which was good that he was able to communicate that and have those chats. That's good. We know obviously now there's going to be a load of changes. There was a load of heat on Stuart Webber from the supporters today. As I said, really interesting that there was this complete dynamic change in the last 2 days, that there will be loads of changes in the summer. There will be millions of changes this summer, not an L, but loads of changes. So, okay, there are going to be loads of changes, but it's very easy to just sit there and go, oh, let's just quickly talk about the future, because we better not reflect on anything that's happened this year. And ultimately, there is a lot to deal with right here, and a lot of unknowns. We've got, Mark Atanasio involved and several question marks over there, and that could be a significant changing point in terms of how the club develops. But what is clear right now is that a lot of people are coming to the stadium and are not happy with the people running the club, basically, because that's what the chants were, and there were quite a lot of them. The ground was quarter full by full time, if that. And it's not a very happy place to be. David Wagner made no changes apart from the Sam Byram change on the red card. I don't actually know why that is. I didn't ask him. It is a shame, really, that Teemu Pukki's farewell tour has it started yet? I don't know. We've only got 2 games now. It's West Brom and back here on Coronation weekend. And then by pure, obviously, comparison to that, we had Russell Martin, who took the time. I've never seen this before, but he actually came out onto the pitch before kickoff, before any of the teams were out, and went onto the pitch to go and applaud the Swansea supporters. Also, obviously, he's then getting applauded by some Norwich fans, so he acknowledges them too. So I found it interesting to have an opposition manager. I know he's come back, but do that. It's nice. I mean, sometimes I'll just come up to the dugout, obviously, and get a bit of a round of applause there. But she went out for one there. I do love Russ, and obviously it's been a great day for him. Really interesting what he's doing at Swansea, because it's not the easiest job at times, but also they're quite, there's a demand for what they are trying to achieve, and they've been doing well. So he's got a lot to kind of balance there, but ultimately they're finishing the season quite strong. Their biggest problem might be if the board sells some players, or they don't necessarily get the opportunity to build on the squad, which does seem to be a recurring theme at Swansea. So it'll be interesting how it develops. But I have to say, I think Russ has done a good job there, because they play some lovely football. They moved the ball around really nicely, and they were they weren't really tested at the back, in fairness. But he did a good job at MK Dons as well. So he's doing what he needs to establish himself as a successful manager. Until that point, for every manager where they get sacked, but hopefully that'll be some time off for us. So it's been great to see him do that today, but it did rather put into context where Norwich are and what happens next. I don't know what that is and what that looks like, but I'll certainly try and keep an eye on it and see where we go. Right, that's enough. I think it's very rambling. I still can't think of the point that I was then trying to make at the end there. Maybe I'll think of it in time for the podcast on Monday. So join us for that, On the Ball on Monday. Can't remember who's on. But I'm sure it'll be great. In the meantime, have a wonderful weekend. Forget about the football, and I'll get rid of that. We don't see that anymore. Enjoy yourselves, and until then, cheerio. Bye bye. See you later.